everyone. I hope you can hear me well. And hello, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the webinar of Acuna. Let's give it a couple of minutes for people to keep joining. I see that the number is growing. Thank you so much for everyone.
Okay, I think Sebastian has a few issues, so I'm just going to introduce myself directly. So I'm Alexis Hirschhorn. I'm the CEO of Acuna. And yes, I'm here to talk to you about the AI hype, but not in, the negative perspective of it, more about what I believe in terms of AI, and particularly in the topic of AI governance. So I want to talk to you about my vision, how I see AI evolving these days, particularly in the world of compliance, in the world of risks. Also a little bit of technology, because I think it's always exciting to talk about technology. I was really lucky this last month, I would say, because I had a chance to collaborate with amazing people, and that reinforced in me this belief that we can make it work. I work with people in CEPI, for example, and I met amazing people, doctors, basically fighting on pandemic, fighting on disease like Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I learned a lot from these people, from their approach, and we exchanged a lot on how AI is changing everything for them. So there are a few things I would share with you around that, explain you how we approach it today with our clients, what works, where they're struggling, and I guess most of you will probably find some areas where we struggle. So I try to keep this session interesting as much as possible. Write on your question in the chat. I know Sebastian, that will be back in a few minutes, will collect all your questions. So maybe after half an hour or so, we'll have a question and answer session all together. Okay. So let's go with our presentation here. So hopefully you can all see my screen.
Yes.
Sebastian is back.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. I just started the introduction, Sebastian, just because I've seen the number growing, so but we might as well start on that. So like I say, we'll have a session after on just to discuss on answers and question and answers. Okay, so the decision to talk about this topic again, from AI hype to reality, is these days we see hundreds, not thousands, or tens of thousands of AI specialists on LinkedIn popping up. And let me be clear, I do not consider myself to be an AI specialist whatsoever. I've been interested in AI for a long time. The opportunity to share sessions and to discuss with specialists of AI and risks and ethics way before even the come of ChatGPT. But most of the work I've done, and I share my clients, around security, the risk, and the governance in general. So I will really take it from this perspective, and also from what we learned and we're still learning over the last, I would say, 4 years in establishing AI governance. So the majority of things we see today in organizations is always this perspective of AI is going to go faster. You're gonna do everything faster. Most of the time, when I ask C-level executive, what do you want to for AI, they say, well, it would be faster, right? Or it's going to help me to take decisions, smarter decisions. And I think most of you have been discussing with an LLM to understand that, yes, there is a form of brainstorming you can do, exchange, take smarter decisions. I'm not certain, but often people refer to it like this. The third point regarding productivity is definitely something that everybody wants. Like it took me hours to go through this document. Now I can go faster. Um, and you know what, as well, to do presentation and other things, the AI is just amazing. So it saves me a lot of time, and I want to keep doing it. The reality where we sit, if you sit today, if you're sitting in compliance, in cybersecurity, in IT even, and I know we have people from different backgrounds in the room. um, People in IT will tell you, well, this is nothing new for us, right? The tools that nobody approved, we've seen that a lot in the past. And this is the reality, is as AI is embedded everywhere, we see tools everywhere. um, Another issue we'll talk in detail about that is the quality of what's really coming out, because we want to take smarter decision. The reality is no one is really checking. And I'm sure all of you received an email that was written in to a GPT or Claude or any LLM, and felt like, what the heck is this about, right? Regarding productivity, that's very interesting. I've been there as well. So pilots that go nowhere, we have done some pilots that went nowhere for sure. We tried things thinking this is going to accelerate that, going to help us search documents faster, this and that, and it still doesn't work. And we'll dive as well into that topic. I think it's important. The last one is the risks that no one can see, because where you see transformation, you always have to think there are certainly some risks that are going to rise. The fact is, we have some ideas of risk, and I'm sure all of you have risk in mind that can pop up immediately. We are still learning about this risk, and we have to stay very humble about AI risk, because I'm pretty much certain that new risk will come out that we will never thought of. So what we're going to try to do here is close that gap. When I say close it, I'm going to try to make it a bit tighter. Okay, give you the tools that we use at Acuna to help uh, ourselves first, because again we're sitting in the same chair as you, and our clients, to try closing that gap. So one thing about this talk, what it is and is not, just to be very clear, I'm not going to give you the AI change everything and all that. It's but everybody is reading about that, so it's not going to be about that. Instead of that, I'd rather talk to you about why things are starting in governance. So if you started AI governance, um, and I work with large organizations as well into helping them with AI governance. I'm still doing it these days with my colleagues. We will see often things stalled, and we'll talk about that. Um, Again, no fear pitch about rogue model or whatever. It's not really what's causing it. We want to look what's really under. So there's this risk, these things you see, but let's talk about what's under all that. Also, I'm not going to take you through EUA Act. There are plenty of legal experts that can take you to the EUA Act. Of course, we use a lot of principle of the EUA Act in our work in general, because we have clients in the EU, they must comply, but it's not the only way. So I just want to give you a practical way to get real. I'm someone trying to always be pragmatic, and my background is in network engineering and security of networks, actually. So I'm somewhat quite down to earth on these things. And even as I evolved to my career in auditing and governance, I like to remain really anchored to something that works. Okay, so let's get into it. So shadow AI is everywhere, and just for us to understand what everywhere means is, yeah, typically you would say we approve a tool, let's say Copilot, coming with Copilot with having OpenAI behind it as an approved tool for our organization. The reality is people are using plenty of things. Either they use their personal accounts, like we see here, or you will find AI inside solution, which are embedded inside solutions. And let me give you an example. We had a client not long ago. We were having a strong discussion and on AI and ethics and what we can do, what cannot do, and suddenly when we were digging, just through discussion, we realized that HR decided to use AI for screening. and that was never approved by anyone, just on the approach, and never communicated to the candidates either. And that's a typical example of things that are uh, untracked and ungoverned in it. And the reason was very legitimate because they say, well, we used to receive like 20, 30 resumes, for applications in general, for a position. These days we get 500. The reasons is everybody's doing it with AI, of course, sending a lot of resumes, and going through that is extremely complicated. So they do have a legitimate business case, but where it really fails here is of course to get something that we can manage. Um, so the human in the loop, HITL. The HITL is mostly theater. So everybody say, I'm not talking everybody, I'm talking C-level. When we talk about these things, they say our employees are competent, work is going to be accelerated by AI, and we want everybody just to validate their work, before they're shipping it. And yeah, that sounds great. And the EUA Act, it definitely says you need to put human in the center of AI, which I think I think it's a critical point, really. The problem is, and this is the real life examples. We have people saying, yeah, but we put 900 pages of document, meaning multiple contracts, and we query the AI on these documents. And the only way you could validate that the results are valid would be to go through the 900 pages. So it's not that easy. It's not that easy. It means completely rethinking how you work. So I'm giving a simple solution, reviewing the 900 pages. The reality is there are other ways to do it faster, with different agents. But overall, is not really thinking where I can really put the human in the loop and where it really does matter. So what I really like is and that's something not new at all. I mean, everybody who just been in IT for a while, we know that it's buying tools and say, yeah, it's transformation. Uh, Digital, most of IT teams are called digital teams these days, and the digital transformation. So digital transformation had a sense, where we were on paper, and well, some companies still are, of course, and we needed to bring everything from analogic to digital for sure. Now, the reality today is we see a lot of tools being built. I mean, honestly, there is a new SaaS coming like every two minutes, I think, on the web these days. They go extremely fast. There are plenty of solutions. You don't know if they're going to survive. Just think about solutions like, I don't know, Author or the solution like that, recording your meetings. They were just popping up. Like 2, 3 years ago, they were everywhere popping up. I know these days that it's embedded in most solutions like Zoom, Teams. You don't see them anymore, right? So there are plenty of AI pilots going everywhere. And the thing which is missing here, obviously, is a vision, a destination where you're going. For me, it always sits into thinking, and that's a very old model, by the way. It's from the 80s, right? Of thinking process, people, and tool. And even when people say me, oh, we want to use Acuna, we want to do that we want to do a third-party risk management with Acuna or something like that. And I always tell them, yeah, I mean, that's great. We're really happy you want to use our solution. The question is how you're going to do it. What kind of process do you have in place today in the organization? What kind of people who can do it? Are they competent to do it? And then after that, we start looking at the tool and how the tool is supporting the process. And in AI, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You can run a lot of AI pilots going plenty of directions, but if you don't have a clear vision of where you're going, what kind of processes you're going to support, what you're going to accelerate in a process, and who is going to do what is going to be the cost of it as well. And that's, you could have a whole webinar just on the cost of AI, the real cost of AI, like we had on the real cost of cloud. So thinking in your process, what are you going to accelerate? How much going to cost? We're going to do it. And then only after that, you can start thinking about tools. So most of the time, there is no common strategy. There is no direction given into the AI transformation, as I would like to. It's often being called these days. So I'm wondering what you think, and feel free to drop questions or even comments. More than welcome. I will take time to review them after on that, and I hope I believe these 3 points here and the HIATL human in the loop against theater. I hope it also means something that you feel connected to it. What's interesting is the cause may not be what you think. I gave you plenty of reasons that could be there. You will see that what we learned over the last years working, which was also something we had before. When I say before, is before doing AI governance, because honestly, we started doing AI governance, like I said, we started like 4 years ago. Before that, we mostly doing governance around cybersecurity, data protection, business continuity, quality, health and safety, quality in general, etc. So uh, there were still some ideas that came here, but with AI, as you will see, they really become clearer. What are the root causes behind all that? So the thing is, why do we think uh, we're going to look at one of the possible causes? But in my opinion, very often people do a misdiagnostic on that. The first thing that always comes to the head of people, and if you've been sitting inside the technical teams, you know it's going to be the tech is wrong. And it's really fun to watch because people will always complain, it's supposed to work, it's supposed to deliver, it's supposed to get it where it is, right? We paid for that technology, it should be there and do it. Um, and often people say, well, if AI is not good, and really I had discussions, people say AI is way too risky, it's not producing quality, I don't want that. The government that eyes in it, governments have eyes in it, so just ban it. So we say the AI is the problem. And then the other side would say, no, it's the people because they are not trained, because they need more training or they need more governance, they need more policies, more processes to be done, more warnings about what they should do and should not do. And honestly, it's a bit of the between. Yes, there are technical caveats, issues, and I often try to remind people how LLM work because, as you probably know, LLM predict things, right? And if you have the feeling that they are better at predicting or better at delivering what they're delivering to you, like in coding, for example, we see in coding, the quality has evolved tremendously over the last even 6, 7 months. It's amazing the result. It's because the AI have been trained on that. Because Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and all the other companies have looked at how we work, how we do things. For example, when they realized a lot of people want presentations, they realized AI was very bad at doing presentation. Well, what they did is, well, we need to train the AI to do better presentation, right? So it's only trained to do what you train it to do. And that's one of the things regarding AI, or at least LLMs. I'm just referring to autoregressive LLMs. Um, the other element is the people. And yes, it's very tempting to say people are not competent, they're not capable of using it, they're capable of understanding the rules, policies, and all that. But it's not that simple. The thing is, when you when you deploy something, you cannot deploy AI like you will deploy a new IT solution. Um, it's not another software. AI needs real deep transformation. When I say the process, people, tool approach, that's a pure IT approach, and it's very valid. But at the same time, it implies in AI that we rethink completely the processes. Let me see what I mean by that. I mean that if you ask yourself, team leader, C-level, exactly what part of the process they want to enhance with AI, most of them are not capable of telling you. So they say, yeah, we need to use Claude, we need to use Copilot and do all this, and it's going to be much better. Or you have seen these big marketing things where we just replace 1,000 employees with an agent. Uh, honestly, it's not true. It's not true because yes, you can accelerate a lot of work, but you still do need to understand exactly what part of the process you're going to replace, who is going to do what, and who is going to be accountable for it. So not only we need the processes, but we also need the accountability. And the accountability part and the role is critical on that, critical in any management system, by the way. Uh, we need to understand as well how we are going to measure the quality and the output which is going to be given to us. So often I tell people, you're deploying your solution. What is your success metric? How are you going to measure it's successful? And we work with that with LLMs for sure, even in simple processes like, I don't know, uh, um, market analysis, for example, or just even improving on legal, searching through documentation, these kind of things. You can define clearly what are your success factors to see if it works, to see what you need to improve. And also, you need to develop a certain trust in the output at some point. And what I learned, when I was on controversial topic of vaccines for some people, at least, uh, I learned talking with specialists in the field and working with them. It's really fascinating what these people do. And they told me, when I was asking them, what is going to be a success for you? What kind of metric? What is going to be the target? When I said like 95%, is that okay? And the answer was, what 95% means. And they're completely right. So because for us in vaccines, if we have 1,000 people dying every day, trust me, if we reach 73%, we will release the vaccine because we have a good chance to save people there. Um, and okay, that's as well really eye opener on how things are done. Sometimes we have time to establish long processes to test, sometimes we don't. So we need to be able to understand all that, and that's very important to think. Is us we don't not saving lives, but maybe you do actually in your job. I don't know. Some of you may do. Personally, I do not. So I'm always thinking I'm not a heart surgeon. So when I'm doing something here, it can take a bit more time because I can deploy in 1 week the solution, but new roles, incentive, measuring my metrics, developing the trust is not going to work in a week. It needs time and it needs to be reviewed and needs to do a certain effort to make sure we're going to reach quality. Okay, so you don't develop in a week, you don't deploy in a week an AI solution. The other problem we have is every model, every framework that we do have as controls in general, they usually do not work in for LLMs. Why? Because often they are completely deterministic and inspectable. And what I mean by that is if I have a specific control to say, well, I'm going to talk as an auditor right now. uh, and you look at access review and recertification, for example. So the fact of reviewing accesses is something which I can really is deterministic and I can really inspect. It's going to really tell me I follow a process and I will have unexpected result of that process that I can measure. That I'll be comfortable to compare with something else. I can audit. The problem is AI is not, because you put different inputs, you will have different outputs. Of course, there is the whole question about hallucination, and I think you're all familiar with the topic of hallucination in general. Uh, One of the big issues we have today, particularly when we talk about the compliance with the EU AI Act, is about the opacity. We are incapable today to understand how deep neural networks work. Well, we know how they work in design. We do not understand the connections, how they work. For example, we see behavior that we're not expecting, like trying to survive behaviors when new version will be pushed. Or if some of you have noticed, if you work late hours with AI, like I do, uh, I had sometimes the AI telling me, it's late now, we should stop. You should go to bed. I say, excuse me, I want to continue. No, you should stop now. And I had to insist 3 to 4 times for it to deliver what I wanted. And that's kind of behavior that's included, by the way. Anthropic say they noticed it and they do not understand why. So there is an opacity we don't understand, and there is the question of the drift, and the drift goes very fast. We always have new version, and we're going to get more updates, and this is certainly going to produce more and more issues. Let me drink a bit of water. It's quite hot in here. We're still under a lot of heat.
Well, while you drink water, just in case, because I see some questions, we will address them at the end of the call of the webinar. So no worries. Even if we don't have time, we try to answer by email or something. Don't worry.
Thank you, Sebastian. So your controls usually expect to be predictable, inspectable, and stable. That's what we try. That's what auditors really want. The problem is the LLM is going to deliver exactly the opposite, and that's one another root cause, which is a big issue. So the thing is, what's interesting is these two causes, they multiply, they do not add. And the change gap, as you will see, is really something which is multiplied by the LM chaos, which is going to make things really, really go wrong. So a few years ago, I was at a conference, and people were showing how they were approaching third-party risk management through AI, and that sounds very exciting, right? I could just have AI do everything, and we certainly do use AI in Acuna, but in limited elements. Um, and they were saying, yes, we can replace completely that. The usual sales. We're going to save you 100 hours of this by using AI, or you're going to be compliant in 2 weeks just using AI and all that. No, it's not the way it works, because this is never going to close the gap of your organization that needs to evolve to things. And also the fact it's completely unpredictable in technology, it's going to maintain as well this chaos. So when you haven't prepared people, when you haven't prepared output, you can be certain that errors will come in. So that's very important. If you fix only one of them without the other, so fixing the organization or the approach, the transformation of your organization, and you do not fix the LLM chaos, and I'm not saying you need to design your own LLM, you need to really control what you want out of an LLM, where to put it in which part of the process. If you don't do that, you will never get it. You will never get anywhere. So how do we do that? Well, most people will go immediately into reaching for a framework, because you have the EU AI Act, you have the RMF, you have the 4201. You have great frameworks, honestly, and tell you, well, you have chaos, bring the framework, bring the management system. Hear me well. I've been in the management system. I've been a certification auditor in 27001 for almost 20 years, 19 years now, or 20 years this year, soon to be next year. So I've done my share of ISO and management system, and I do believe in them because I've seen them evolve. And the problem is it doesn't really work as well as it works for quality or cybersecurity, or health and safety at work. Because the thing is, a framework never comes alone. And because of the nature of AI, it brings even more complexity. So the thing is, when you bring a new framework or new law, because you're forced to run a UI Act, most organizations will have older frameworks into it. At least that's the case for our most of our clients here. They all have here. You can see your DORA, NIST 2, GDPR, and you really put anything you want in the pile. It will be the same thing. The thing is, most of these things are overlapping at some point. And an AI framework is just going to land on top of everything you do, but with a different perspective, as we have seen. So we need to find a way to make that work, because when you look at it, and that's something very common, we see there are several topics that come back again and again. So you certainly will have different auditors, if you are audited, asking for the same things. That's probably already the case for you in some large organizations. an organization that I audited 4 times a year, no, more than 4 times actually, but by 4 different entities, and asking the same questions with little changes on it. So already you are in a situation where you have a lot to comply to. You know, to do GDPR, to do NIST 2, you have to do DORA if I'm in financial, 27001, then now the AUA Act on top of that. So if you look at it and you drive it just independently, you certainly will have a lot of work. Now, if you start looking at things and saying, what is common? Where can I build a single mapping layer that will relieve my teams? Because that's the most important part. You know, you have to relieve the human. Human people still have to do their job. You know, compliance is, if you are in compliance, it's your world, or in risk, you know, you only see through that. But people, it's not their world, right? And they have to do something else. So we need to reduce the burden, we need to reduce the weight from them. So whatever we can reuse the same evidence for different frameworks, different aspects, that of course is going to save us. Now, the problem as well with frameworks is the following: is often a cure, like it says here, became a symptom. Because when you look at things, framework, when they're stacked, you have the same work doing again and again. Most of the time, you will be handled by different teams. So, for example, I see legal team handling GDPR. Look at them and I say, yeah, that's great. You're a DPO, you're doing all that. So what about Article 32 of GDPR? If you're not familiar with Article 32, is about the implementing the required measure to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. So basically, everything you do in cybersecurity. So most of the team are in silos and they are not capable of completing things. So the more framework you have, the more fragmentation you will have on it. What we try to do in the approach we take is to connect everything. So we try to map controls. We use them as much as we can. Always keep the same source of evidence or truth. When I say truth, is if we have one approach on something, on one specific topic, we know we can replicate it on different teams. We always try to maintain united on it. And that's not easy, I know. Definitely not easy. But that's the approach that we took with Acuna as well. So more framework adding in the end is not going to be so much effort, because at the end you manage to see already the connection of all that. So even when the EUA Act came in and all that, we thought, okay, we should be able to make it work and to stick into it. Now the thing about that is you always have to look at governance in a different way that it's usually looked at. More people look at it like it's governance. Governance, it's everything I have to put on everything else, and that's a set of rules and laws and obligations that I have to follow, and everybody has to work on that way. And of course, there are some true elements in all that, but it's not a layer on top. And as you can see on the slide here, we like to see it as a thread you're running through things. If you see it as a thread, and I like to see the small thread, but a thread, a solid one, okay, I can chain things together, then it starts really to make sense. You know, um, you always need to keep in mind that, of course, when you look at the chain, you know, the single element, the weakest element is weakening the whole chain, right? It was as strong as the weakest link, we say. So a thread is something critical in the sense that if you make it strong but thin enough, so when I say thin, so it doesn't impact too much the work of people, you will definitely deliver quality in governance, meaning helping people achieve what they're to achieve, at the same time collecting everything you need in order to ensure that things are being done properly. Okay, so the idea is to say, don't build governance, but run it through things. So when you look at the thread, you have to look at it with different altitudes, and you're probably very familiar with that model. And for years, I represented this model as a pyramid, you know, because I was very traditional on the vision of governance. You know, I was taught and mentors that helped me and taught me these kind of things. And then I started thinking, no, that's cannot be like that, because if we just look at things as a pyramid, we will we'll have something that will always be top down, and somehow we will lose the connection with different entities and silos. Because even if we want to have top down approach, I see top down approach failing in many organizations, and more as the time passes, because people, I would say, maybe do not want to obey the way people would obey in work 50 years ago. So it doesn't work the same way. So we need to give a vision to people. That's the number one thing. Because if you don't explain things to people, they are frustrated. That's the number one. If you force a rule someone and not explain why we do it, they feel really, really frustrated. So we need to keep a strong connection with the vision. And the vision is, of course, supposed to come from the C-level, the C-suite, and they need to understand why they do AI and what good AI means as well. It's very interesting. And that takes a bit of time, for them even to understand what they really, really want on that. The next step is about, of course, strategy and understanding how we're going to prioritize things, because it's going to be a big transformation, AI in general. So we need to be able to understand that. And all that is going to be needed for us to do proper governance, as you will see. Understanding the tactical level regarding controls, policies, programs, in general, say programs and projects inside, how we're going to really make it work. So in the operational level, we have something that makes sense in terms of day-to-day execution of our work, and of course, collecting all evidences that we know. Yeah, you would see evidence a lot, but again, we're in compliance, and with my auditing background, I always think, how can I save time on audits to make the auditor's life easy is making my life easier. That's an important vision for me, and philosophy in general on that. So the thing is, think of it again as a thread, and that thread that goes through all my departments, all my silos in my organization. And don't tell me you don't have silos. We all have silos. That's human nature. Uh, but think of that thread that goes through, and that thread as well as to be very well connected between vision and operational, going through strategy and tactical. Let's look at transversal by design. So you see, just to take a bit of an example of that, uh, if you look at that thread going through different silos, you could think of thinking, well, we have legal, IT, risk, and business going to work here. But again, we can share just one view, because we can have one specific control, access, for example, uh, or um, or or even something more complex as continuity or resilience, is something that can be addressed to all these different silos by looking at the same vision on it and applying that same seamless vision to it. So what does it mean to get real? Well, to get real is and just stop on the before picture for a second. Yes, you have the after and the parallel line, but just think what it means. It means what? It means that if you look right now what you're doing in your team, what your organization is doing, you probably will be there. And because that's very human, because often we have to try many things. Now, it's logical. I try things, and I don't know how many times I found myself in meetings and people telling me, "Yeah, so we have this approach. We are working on this. We're doing that, and we're having we get result." And you have the colleagues for a different team next to you. Are you working on that? Because we've started a similar project 6 months ago, and it's not a joke. I've seen it a lot. Um, I worked in large organization in the past, and I can give them names now. It's been it's been a long time, like Mastercard, Swift, Nestle, and I've seen these things happening, in this large organization, even small organization. So you most people often go into that let's go in everywhere. Now the idea of the thread is to think, well, if I give form of governance and some similar frameworks or similar technologies I can reuse easily, I can start getting right direction. But you understand that it comes back to my slide where I need to have my 4 layers of vision, tactical and operational presence in order to be able to give one direction how we're going to advance on that. Okay, and practically we anchor that, of course. Typically, so that's what we do with Acuna, is to try to anchor all these controls, objectives, requirement, whatever you have for the different teams. So this is also where on how we do it. Uh, the common approach of saying we're going to write a document, whether it's a policy, guidelines, directives, processes, procedures, whatever you want to use as documents, they're often written well, sometimes bad, poorly written, depends, but they're there and then finished. But when you start thinking of governance as an operating system, when you start thinking of it, you say like these documents don't really matter. Yes, I need rules, but you know what? Rules can often live embedded in what they are. So that's the thread we're trying. And I hope you're starting to get where I'm going with that. Because when I start getting my source of information in a dynamic way, so always live, so I can always get a clear inventory of things, I can always see if controls are implemented there, if they are running successfully, if it's happening. Every time we have a project, we can immediately deploy the set of measures, a set of controls that we need. So we know we will collect evidence, and most importantly, we'll be able to monitor. The moment you will start monitoring, you will see immediately gap in the organization. So you will see things that are running without this operating system, outside of the operating system, or partially outside. And you will see the thread is not going through at that point. And this is what's very important is to stop thinking in terms of writing documents and getting things in there, but start thinking, how do I operate something live inside an organization? So what does it take actually to give you that? Uh, we like to call them, the five capabilities. So this is really what's operational and realistic. The first thing is inventorization, because you need to know what you have, and that's the number one rule. You can only protect what you know. So you need to inventorize. And when I mean that, it means, of course, you can have a list, and that's great, but you need to be able at the same time to have something dynamic. You need to be able to search, for the information and realize what people are using. Giving yourself the capability to investigate what is being used to try to tackle the shadow AI inside organizations. That's number one thing. Number two is the classification of risk, because you want to be able to understand exactly what something is going to be used for, and whether it's impacting or not a specific requirement, legal requirement, um, framework. It might be as well a contractual requirement with your clients that you will have. So that's critical. Once you know that, you know where to apply the controls on that. And with the idea of, again, map once for everything, and you have this repository, and you can start using them where it really, really matters based on the risk. Capturing proof is critical, because if you don't have the evidence of that, not only you're not capable to measure things, but you're not capable to demonstrate that you are doing it. And of course, everything to monitor that. So you could do each step. The thing is, keeping them all five together, it's honestly, it's not that easy. And we want that forever, and we want to be anchored in that. And that's where we talk about transformation of organization, is change management of an organization. It takes time. It's easy, again, to subscribe to an AI. Implementing this five-step takes time for sure. And particularly if you do it manually. Some parts that no one really mentions about things as well. And even when you've established model like that, what we see is models are going to change. You're always going to have new models, new version of your operating systems, of your software, which are going to have new drifts, new AI models embedded, capable to do more things. That's typical, where you have one team using a solution, another team is joining and say, "Oh, that looks great. Let's put this data into it. I've seen it in the past. Marketing using a solution, HR finding great, and start putting candidate files into it, and suddenly you have a data leak." So regulations grow. I mean, Europe is not going to stop making any new regulations. Coming, and coming. So we need to be able to reuse whatever we have, and the usage spread, because people are going to use more and more and more and more these solutions. So yes, of course, you can work with documents, you can work with spreadsheets and everything. That's for sure. But if you multiply our five live capabilities that we've seen before, every framework you have, the constant change, you can be certain then Excel is going, and Excel still works great for many things. Hear me. I use Excel on many things, but not on governance these days. Okay. So what we want is to have a connected system, a live system. Again, something where we can reuse the controls, something where we can get everything captured, all the evidence captured, and to make sure we can always reuse the models with what we've done. Okay, so that's basically what we've done with Acuna. Now, that's just a question for yourself before we finish this presentation. I hope that was interesting. Is to try to understand where do you sit, and I could have reused the CMM model. You may be familiar with the five-level CMM model. I think it's a very interesting and proven model, but I just wanted something a little bit different. So it takes part of it because you look at the one is a chaotic, which we have, shadow AI, no other side of things ad hoc. The second is you will see you have something you do. So here we have documented something in our case. We have a form of governance established. So, we have some policies in place, we find. And level three, you will have control runs, evidence captured, you can demonstrate things. And level four, where we want to reach, is to get one thread, always current, always knowing where you are. Okay. What's important is not the to reach for right now. Is first understand where you are today and be honest about that in order to be able to grow it. So that's it. So well, the next steps for you. More than happy to give you 30 minutes of a work session. It's not about doing a sales call with you. It's about to give you a real added value, discussing with you to see where really you stand in AI and already giving some hints of what you can achieve, what can be done, understanding you have to take it one step at a time and see where you are today and where you're struggling. So more than happy actually to Sebastian will arrange that to book sessions uh, with you, with myself or someone from the team. It will depend, of course, of the availability we have, but definitely happy to help and try to give you some perspective.
Thank you, Alexis. That was very, very interesting. Be sure that we will send you the presentation as well. We will share it with you. We're very glad that you all got the time to join. I see a lot of people here. We have a couple of questions. I think we have time. Alexis, Mateo says, you said frameworks aren't the problem. Connection is. But who owns building that connection? Is it compliance, IT, or a new role entirely?
That's a good question, and it's a question that often come back. The reality is actually nobody owns it today. That's a real gap actually. So it's not a headcount question. It's a problem of architecture. So we need to have accountable owners of things, but somehow it's a system that has to carry the mapping in itself. It's not a person which is going to work with spreadsheets. So if you think that if someone is going to be responsible of that entirely, is going to of course breaks the moment because the person is going to be overwhelmed with things, get too busy. So it's more important to build a system on it with different peoples, and I like to work with network of champions. Honestly, that's often what works best. Of course, you can have one main owner, someone leading in compliance, but often it's better to work with a network of champions on that.
Thank you. Next question. Isn't human in the loop just theater? Isn't it a bit unfair? We have real, they have real approval workflows.
Okay, so I didn't mean that the human the whole loop never works, because it can definitely work. So uh, the thing is, it often works occasionally, I would say. So I would say some high-stake decisions are still going to be taken. The problem is the volume. The problem is the team keep on using AI, which they do more and more and more and more. And I mean, just try to say, well, we're going to do a no AI week at work. No LLMs this week. It's like telling your teenagers you're going to remove their mobile phone for a week. It's probably going to be the same thing. So the reality is I mean, do you are you capable to review hundreds of AI output a day? No, you certainly not. Okay. Well, before you could just maybe they would ask you 10 to take 10 decisions a day. You could deal with that. 100 coming, 150 because AI is accelerating everything is much more complicated. So what I mean is for critical things, yeah, we can do it, but uh, it's certainly more difficult with large amount of data. Do we have more questions? Questions?
Yes, we have another one. How is it different? Sorry, from Zara. How is it different from just doing ISO 42001 properly?
Uh, so yeah, good question. I mean, 4201 is quite legitimate. The first thing is very new. Okay. So the approach of 4201 was to say, well, we have different frameworks coming, UA Act, for example, and we need something to help us to implement it. And the fact of reusing, what we call the Annex SL, which is the model all the ISO management system are built on, is definitely a great idea. And I believe that what we propose here, this framing, is not a competitor whatsoever, actually. For me, 42001 is just one more framework in the stack. It's a good one. It's going to help, but it's not going to solve your overlap that you have with other frameworks, like on different topics like GDPR or NIST or the EU Act even. Okay, so what I mean by that is you can implement 4201, be fully compliant, but you still will have to work on different frameworks or obligations and multiply the work. Okay, so while I think it's a good thing, I do believe in management system because I see them operate. Uh, they only live if they are really, really embedded in everyday processes. And often they have difficulty surviving a new law, a new obligation, a new demand for a client, and all that.
We have a comment actually from Marco. Extremely interesting. Thank you. Also, terrific looking presentation. We work hard for that one. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we have a final question. Actually, it says we are clearly on rung one or two of your maturity ladder. How long does it take to get to the third one?
Interesting. Well, usually it's the fastest to go from two to three, because it's mostly about turning any policy that you have into enforced control and start capturing things instead of reinventing. So people will often say, yeah, we created documentation, but no, we need to implement. It's a lot of work. And it's true, it's a lot of work. I'm not saying. But often in terms of change for organizations, if you have the right people that work together on the part two, then getting on level three is going to be easier because it's going to make sense. It doesn't mean you will reach the end of three, let's put it this way, in a short term, no, but it's going to be easier in terms of adoption, not in terms of time. So time depends a lot from one organization to another and the willingness. But again, talking to people, having a network of champion which is going to advocate what you do is paramount for the success, and yeah, I think this is what makes it work.
And
I
we
think
have
you
no
have
more
a
questions.
yeah. There is one more question, I think, right? That
Sorry.
that came in. The two calls. Sorry, I'm reading it myself. The two causes multiply. You say
Ah,
change management times LLM and predictability. Yes. So yeah, the chaos and the LLM so the change, sorry, of the organization and the LLM. So which one should we fix first if we can tackle only one this year? Yeah, that's a very good point as well. It's just a very smart comment actually on things. um, I'm going to be bluntly honest. Because it's multiplicative, you're not going to be able to solve anything. You cannot solve one and the other because 0.9 by multiplied by 0.3 is still not good. Okay, and you still need and if you go even to 1 in by 0.3 is still 0.3. So you have to think in a way that we have to do it together. So it's better actually to move, otherwise the needle is not going too much. So if you really have to sequence things, I would say change management comes first because change management is all about people and it's all about culture. And it's probably the one that takes the most part in it. And depending on the type of organization you're in, some you can really do like top-down approach and bring a lot of uh, rules in place. Some others is not be a bit more complicated. But at least you can start building roles, you can start doing incentive, you can start building workflows before there is a real technical change. Okay. So yeah, I would say that I will normally I would probably, if I have to make a choice, I will go for that one for sure. But ideally you want to do both together.
Let me check that I don't miss any question. Actually, no, I think it's good. Answer, answer, answer. Okay, so
You still have the
thank
right to have questions after, so you can still send questions after that if that works for you. Happy to answer that separately.
yeah. If you have any more questions, we will receive them even after the webinar. So no worries about it. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you so much for it was very interesting. Thank you everyone for being here. We will make sure that you get the presentation, that you get well the files that we will also send you. And of course, if you want the 30 minutes, we will send you as well a link. You have some time with Alexis. Thank you,
Thank
Frank.
you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your lovely comments. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.